if you were not from here? Not you personally, but life itself. What if the first living thing that ever existed on Earth did not start on Earth? What if it arrived from space on a rock, traveling for millions of years through the cold dark of the solar system before crashing into a young, warm planet and starting everything? Every human being, every animal, every plant, every bacterium, every living thing you have ever seen or touched or heard of, all of it possibly descended from something that was never from this world to begin with. That idea has a name: Panspermia, and it is not science fiction. It is a serious scientific hypothesis supported by real evidence, debated by real researchers, and growing stronger with every year that passes. Tonight, we are going to follow it, all the way from the origins of life to the edge of the galaxy. And by the end, you may never think about where you come from in quite the same way again. Get comfortable. Let your body settle. This is going to be a remarkable journey. Part 1. The problem with life on Earth. Here's something that most people don't realize. We do not know how life started on Earth. We know roughly when it started, about 3.7 to 4 billion years ago, possibly earlier. We know what the early Earth looked like: a violent, molten, bombarded world slowly cooling, with oceans forming and volcanoes erupting constantly. But the actual moment, the precise chain of events that took simple chemistry and turned it into the first living, self-replicating thing, we don't know. And here's what makes that even more remarkable. The Earth is 4.5 billion years old. For the first several hundred million years, it was being constantly bombarded by asteroids and comets in an event called the Late Heavy Bombardment. The surface was being reshaped, heated, sterilized, over and over again. And yet, life appeared almost immediately after conditions became survivable. Almost as if it was waiting. Almost as if it didn't need much time at all to get started. That is strange. If life is so difficult to start, and chemically it is extraordinarily difficult, then why did it appear so quickly the moment Earth calmed down enough to allow it? One possible answer: because it didn't start here. It arrived already started, already alive, already capable of surviving and reproducing. And it found a warm, wet, welcoming world and simply continued. That is the core idea of panspermia. Part 2. Can life survive in space? The first question any reasonable person asks is, that's impossible, isn't it? Space is lethal. It's a vacuum. It's freezing. It's bathed in radiation. Nothing could survive that. And that is a completely reasonable thing to think. It is also wrong. In 2008, scientists placed tardigrades, tiny microscopic animals less than a millimeter long, on the outside of a spacecraft in low Earth orbit. No protection, no atmosphere, full vacuum, full solar radiation, temperatures swinging between minus 200 and plus 150 degrees Celsius. They brought them back 10 days later. Most of them were alive. Tardigrades are extraordinary. They can enter a state called cryptobiosis, essentially shutting down all biological processes and becoming, for all practical purposes, indestructible. They have survived pressures 6 times greater than the deepest ocean. They have survived doses of radiation thousands of times greater than what would kill a human being. They have been frozen and thawed, dried completely, and then rehydrated. They keep surviving. But tardigrades are animals, complex by microbial standards. What about bacteria? What about the simplest forms of life? In 2019, researchers discovered that colonies of the bacterium Deinococcus radiodurans, already known as one of the most radiation-resistant organisms on Earth, could survive for more than 8 years on the outside of the International Space Station if they were in a clump thick enough. 8 years in open space. And here is the critical point. The journey from Mars to Earth, under the right orbital conditions, takes between 1 and several million years. That sounds impossibly long. But inside a rock, protected by meters of stone from radiation, kept near absolute zero in the cold of deep space, slowing all chemical decay to almost nothing, the calculations are not as impossible as they first appear. Life is harder to kill than we thought. Much harder. Part 3. The rocks between worlds. You might be wondering, how would life even get from one planet to another? What is the mechanism? The answer is impacts. When a large asteroid or comet strikes a planet with enough force, it doesn't just destroy things, it also launches things. Material from the surface, rock, soil, and anything living inside it gets blasted upward at enormous speed. Some of it reaches escape velocity. It leaves the planet entirely. And then it drifts. We know this happens because we have physical proof. Right now, sitting in museums and research labs around the world, there are meteorites that originated on Mars. We can tell because the gases trapped inside them match the composition of the Martian atmosphere, measured directly by our spacecraft. Rocks from Mars have landed on Earth, naturally, without any human involvement. Just gravity, time, and orbital mechanics doing their work. And the most famous of these Martian meteorites, found in Antarctica in 1984, known as ALH 84001, caused one of the biggest controversies in the history of science. In 1996, a team of NASA scientists announced that they had found structures inside ALH 84001 that looked like fossilized microbial life. Tiny, worm-like shapes, chemical signatures consistent with biological activity. The world went absolutely wild. President Clinton made a public statement. The front pages of every newspaper in the world carried the story. For a brief moment, humanity held its breath. The debate has never fully been resolved. Most scientists today lean toward non-biological explanations for what was found. But the meteorite itself is real. The fact that it came from Mars is real. And the fact that it was traveling through space for 17 million years before landing in Antarctica, that is absolutely real. rocks travel between planets. That is not a hypothesis. That is established fact. The question is only whether anything was alive inside them. Part 4. What we found in space. Here is where things get genuinely extraordinary. In 1969, a meteorite fell near the town of Murchison in Australia. It was collected quickly before rain could contaminate it and studied intensively for decades. What scientists found inside the Murchison meteorite was staggering. More than 90 different amino acids, the building blocks of proteins, the building blocks of life. And here is the key detail. Only about 19 of those amino acids are found in life on Earth. The other 70 plus were completely new to science. They weren't from Earth. They were extraterrestrial. Amino acids forming naturally in space, inside a rock, without any living thing to create them. And the Murchison meteorite is not unique. Similar organic molecules have been found in dozens of other meteorites. In 2022, scientists found all 5 of the nucleobases used in DNA and RNA: adenine, guanine, cytosine, thymine, and uracil, in meteorites collected from different locations around the world. All 5, the complete alphabet of genetic information found in rocks from space. The chemistry of life does not appear to be unique to Earth. It appears to be something the universe produces naturally in many places under many conditions. That is not a small thing. That is one of the most profound discoveries in the history of science. Part 5. The dinosaurs and the gift they gave Mars. Let's think about this from another direction. 65 million years ago, an asteroid roughly 10 to 15 kilometers across struck the Earth near what is now the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. The impact released energy equivalent to billions of nuclear weapons. It triggered wildfires, earthquakes, tsunamis, and a global winter that lasted years. The dinosaurs were wiped out, along with roughly 3/4 of all species on Earth. We know this. It is one of the most studied events in Earth's history. But here is something that rarely gets mentioned. That impact also launched material into space. Billions of tons of rock and soil, and everything living inside it, were blasted off the surface of the Earth at speeds high enough to escape gravity. Some of that material would have eventually reached Mars. Think about that. Bacteria living in the soil of the Cretaceous Earth, sealed inside a chunk of rock by the most violent impact in 65 million years, launched into space, traveling through the solar system for millions of years, and potentially landing on Mars. If any of those organisms survived, and given what we know about bacterial survival in extreme conditions, it is not impossible, then life from Earth may have seeded Mars. We may have accidentally colonized another planet. Millions of years ago, without knowing it. Part 6. Comets and the delivery of water. Panspermia does not only apply to microbes. There is a related idea, sometimes called chemical panspermia or pseudo-panspermia, which suggests that even if life itself did not travel between worlds, the ingredients for life did. Water, for example. The early Earth was extremely hot. Any water on the surface would have evaporated. So where did Earth's oceans come from? The leading theory: comets and asteroids. During the late heavy bombardment, that period of intense asteroid impacts roughly 4 billion years ago, enormous quantities of water-bearing rocks struck the early Earth. The water they contained was released and eventually accumulated into the oceans we have today. The water you are made of, the water in your cells right now, the water in every ocean, every river, every raindrop. It may have arrived from space. And with that water came organic molecules, amino acids, the molecular precursors of life. The Earth was seeded not once, but continuously, for hundreds of millions of years, every impact bringing more water, more molecules, more of the raw material that life would eventually use to begin. The planet was not generating the ingredients of life on its own. It was receiving them, delivered by a solar system full of chemistry, accumulated over billions of years of stellar evolution. We are not separate from the cosmos. We are a product of it. Part 7. Directed Panspermia. Now, here's where the idea becomes truly strange. In the 1970s, two scientists proposed a version of panspermia that goes much further than rocks and comets. Francis Crick, co-discoverer of the structure of DNA, one of the greatest biologists of the 20th century, and chemist Leslie Orgel, published a paper suggesting something remarkable. What if life on Earth was not just accidentally seeded from space? What if it was deliberately sent here? They called it directed panspermia, the idea that an advanced civilization, somewhere else in the galaxy, billions of years ago, intentionally sent microorganisms into space on spacecraft aimed at young, habitable planets. A kind of cosmic seeding program. Crick pointed to something that had always troubled him about the origin of life: the genetic code. Specifically, the fact that all life on Earth uses the same genetic code. Every bacterium, every plant, every animal, every human being, we all use the same 64 codons, the same system for translating DNA into proteins. That universality is strange. If life arose independently in multiple places on early Earth, in different oceans, in different environments, you might expect different lineages with different genetic codes to have competed and survived. Instead, all life on Earth traces back to a single ancestor, a single origin point. Crick found that suspicious. He was not claiming that aliens sent life here. He was raising it as a scientific possibility worth considering. And he was Francis Crick, not someone who said things carelessly. The idea remains controversial. Most scientists consider natural panspermia, life traveling on rocks, more likely than a deliberate seeding program, but it has never been definitively ruled out. And it raises a question that is very hard to shake once you hear it. If life was sent here deliberately, who sent it? And are they still out there? Part 8. Life as a galactic phenomenon. Let's step back even further. If panspermia is real, if life can travel between planets on rocks, surviving the journey through space, then the implications go far beyond Earth and Mars. It means life could spread across an entire solar system. And if life can spread across a solar system, what stops it from spreading between solar systems? The distances are vastly larger. The timescales required are almost unimaginable. A rock traveling from one star system to another would take millions, possibly tens of millions of years, even at the speeds generated by a major impact. But the galaxy is 13 billion years old. Time is not the limiting factor. If a single living organism left one solar system on a rock, traveled for 50 million years through interstellar space, and seeded another planet, and that planet eventually developed life, which eventually had its own impacts and launched its own rocks, then life could, in principle, slowly percolate through the galaxy over billions of years. Not quickly, not deliberately, but inexorably. Like spores drifting on a cosmic wind. This idea is called interstellar panspermia, and while it is far more speculative than the planetary version, it is not physically impossible. The mathematics do not rule it out. And here is what that means. If interstellar panspermia is real, if life spreads between star systems naturally over billions of years, then life in the galaxy may not be the result of millions of independent origins. It may all be related. Every living thing in the Milky Way, on every planet, around every star, possibly descended from a single ancestral form of life that arose somewhere billions of years ago and has been spreading ever since. We may not just be children of the cosmos. We may be cousins to things we have never seen, on worlds we will never visit, orbiting stars we can barely name. Part 9. What the evidence says today. Panspermia is not proven. Let's be clear about that. It is a hypothesis, a serious one, taken seriously by serious scientists, supported by real evidence, but not proven. What we know for certain, organic molecules, including amino acids and nucleobases, form naturally in space and have been delivered to Earth by meteorites. That is established fact. Rocks travel between planets. We have Martian meteorites on Earth. That is established fact. Microorganisms can survive conditions that approximate the space environment for extended periods. That has been demonstrated experimentally. What we do not know is whether any living organism has ever actually survived a complete interplanetary journey, from impact, through space, through atmospheric entry on a new world, to survival and reproduction on that world's surface. That chain of events has never been directly observed. But absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. We have only been looking seriously at this question for a few decades. The universe has had billions of years to run the experiment. And every year, the evidence tilts a little further in the direction of possibility. In 2023, the Ryugu asteroid samples returned by Japan's Hayabusa 2 spacecraft were found to contain uracil, one of the 4 nucleobases in RNA. Found in a pristine, uncontaminated sample from deep space, collected directly from the surface of an asteroid. The chemistry of life, arriving on a rock from the asteroid belt. The universe is trying to tell us something. Closing. Where do you come from? So, where do you come from? The atoms in your body were forged in dying stars. We established that in a previous journey. But tonight we have gone further. The water in your cells may have arrived from a comet. The organic molecules that first assembled into life may have formed in interstellar space and been delivered to a young Earth by an asteroid. The very first living thing that gave rise to all life on this planet, including you, may have begun somewhere else entirely. You are not just made of the universe. You may be from the universe, in a more literal sense than anyone imagined. And if that is true, if life is something that the cosmos produces and spreads naturally, slowly, across unimaginable distances and timescales, then the question of whether we are alone in the universe looks very different. Not, did life arise independently somewhere else, against all the same odds it faced on Earth, but how far has it spread from wherever it started? The galaxy is old. It has had 13 billion years. And if life is as resilient as we now know it to be, if it can survive vacuum and radiation and the cold dark between stars, then it has had 13 billion years to travel. That thought should keep you up at night. Or perhaps, tonight, it should help you sleep. Because if panspermia is real, you are not a lonely accident on an isolated rock in an indifferent universe. You are part of something connected, something ancient, something that has been spreading and growing and persisting across the galaxy long before the Earth existed. You are not a visitor to the cosmos. You are one of its oldest travelers.